Hello, everybody, and welcome back to In the Meadow with Kiki. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so happy you're here, and welcome to today's episode. Today is a very interesting and weird day. I'm recording this on November 6th, the day after this year's election, and I think a lot of us woke up today feeling pretty upset, pretty scared, pretty confused. And so I want to start off this episode by really just creating a space for us to connect and how we can take care of ourselves during this time. The first thing that comes to mind, I think, when we go through moments like these, is this feeling of just being frozen and like not knowing how we can show up on the internet, in the world. I think that moments like these make us feel really stuck of like, well, who am I to like share my gifts and talk about my art or my work in these moments? And that's the first thing that I want to talk about, which I think it is the absolute most important time to continue sharing your magic and sharing your gifts to the world. There's this idea that like, it's rude to, take away attention from the people who are mourning, when in reality, I think, in my opinion, people need to see art and creations and magic and love, and to be pouring into your community, into your people, and into your art in moments like these. It reminds me a lot of the pandemic in 2020. That is when Kiki's Meadow was born. It was literally born in the midst of the 2020 pandemic. And I remember so much of that year was, I spent so much time feeling really just guilty for showing up and spreading these positive, inspirational messages on Instagram when people were suffering and in a lot of pain. And I felt like it was just not my place to, talk about inspiration when people were hurting and I was in a relatively really lucky and good place. I felt like it was just not fair for me to show up when other people were hurting. And I think that moments like these and the election results and how scared so many people are, and especially people in marginalized communities, like people who aren't as lucky as someone like me who, doesn't live in certain states where I'd be affected, or, the fact that I'm a legal citizen. There's so many, ideas of like, well, who am I to share my work in moments like these? But I really, really want everyone to remember that this is the time, more important than ever, to share your magic and share your gifts, and to not let these fucked up systems of power to silence that. I think that moments like these can be so hopeless and so scary, and I believe so deeply that when we come together in love and connection and community, we are so much more powerful than we believe to be. The only reason that these systems have so much power is because the media and like all these systems are in place to really make us feel powerless, to put ourselves against each other, to distract and, take the conversation away from what really matters. And so I think that it's so important to just stay in your magic and also take care of yourself. I think it's the absolutely least selfish thing to do is to take care of yourself during times like this. It's not like the moment you start taking care of yourself, it means that other people are less taken care of. It's actually the opposite. When you're able to pour in your own cup and take care of yourself and nourish yourself, it's a ripple effect, and you're able to take care of others in your own community and radiate that energy that uplifts everyone around you. So the only way, in my opinion, that, these people can quote unquote win is if they win by making us feel powerless and out of control and helpless. I am such a fucking optimist. I believe so deeply in the future of our society and our culture and our world. I think that like the world as a whole is going through like its own dark night of the soul right now. I think that there's systems that are breaking down and falling apart, and I know that the news that we got this morning feels like that's not the case, but I feel like the one thing I hope to get from this next chapter is that we all can come together and wake the fuck up and not be complacent to what's actually happening. I think that sometimes when we get a quote unquote like good result, I think we can kind of end up being in a place of complacency. But I'm hoping that at the least this can do is to bring us together and, again, make space for ourselves to come together as a community and as a whole to make the change that we want to experience in the world. And now that's not to say that you should totally be able to just have your moment of grieving, of pain, of whatever you're going through. That's okay. But I just want to make sure that you never feel frozen and you feel like you shouldn't be showing up in the way that you know you're meant to show up because of whatever's going on in the world. So yeah, those are my thoughts of life going on right now and the energy that we're in today. So I hope you're taking care of yourself. I hope that you're able to take a break, go outside, get some sunlight on your face, breathe some fresh air, go touch a tree, call a friend, drink some tea, whatever you can do to take care of yourself, watch a movie, whatever it is. I hope that you're doing okay. So yeah, other topics that I wanted to talk about on the show today is, number one, the power of being able to start over whenever you please, and the fact that your fresh slate can be whenever you decide it to be. It doesn't matter how far you've gone into this idea or venture or whatever it is, you're allowed to wake up one day and choose to start anew, both energetically, both through identity, whatever you're pursuing. You're allowed to pivot, you're allowed to change, you're allowed to decide what you want to be next. And the reason I say this is I think that we have sometimes such expectations of what we think is going to happen from a certain idea or a certain place or job or whatever it is. And I think that we can become so attached to whatever that's going to look like in our minds. And when it doesn't fully tap into our expectations, I think that it can kind of send us into like a little bit of a spiral. And so I just want to really touch on the idea that like you get to start new every single fucking day. Like there's no rules. Like I think that, we have this attachment to how we think things are going to plan out. And then when they don't, we somehow make it seem like it's something that's really fucking wrong and that we did something wrong. I'm going to bring it into my own life experience. I think that this past year has been a very big year of lessons and growth, and there's been difficult times through, especially this last season of my life, that I've come out of it in such a stronger person and with such clarity and understanding. And I think that so many layers have had to be shed to step into this next level of life that I'm entering. And I think that the biggest thing is that I've been so fully immersed in the education side of entrepreneurship, of, really learning the ins and outs of all of the things that I want to create through my brand and through my business. And I think that I very easily lost sight of really the magic and the real reason that I started Keys Meadow in the first place, the presence and nature and just the connection and what the meadow really represents. The meadow being like going out specifically into nature, but also doesn't matter where you are. It can be like in your living room floor, it can be in your bedroom, it can be at the park, whatever it is. It's like I started Kiki's Meadow because I wanted to create a space where we can go inwards and tap into our intuition and really be able to use the magic of the universe that's all around us at all times to fuel our creativity, to create a life of our dreams. And I think that this year I've gotten so attached to the how in very many aspects. Number one being, my clothing line that I'm launching. I have been a little bit more quiet on that these last couple weeks because there's been a lot of changes, and I've been, having to deal with a lot of just roadblocks and difficult things, and most importantly, timelines, where I think that this summer I was so dead set on launching as soon as I possibly could to get this off the ground and to really start pouring myself into the art behind it and the collaborations behind it. And I've learned some very, very beautiful but hard lessons in that pursuit. Number one being that a lot of these visions I have, need to be done a lot slower than I was hoping them to be. And so that's been, a massive lesson. Is just, what if we got to enjoy the slowness? Like, what if we had to do it slowly? And how could we enjoy the process and allow it to be done in a juicy and intricate and present way versus just trying to steamroll to the end of it to get a final product that we can, feel validated by. I think that that's been something that I had to really like understand. And I think that the difficult part of that has been, feeling this like shame of like, claiming a certain thing and then realizing that this is going to take a little bit longer than I was hoping it to be. And that there are other priorities that I can pour myself into as I slowly get that started. I'm still going to be releasing my first couple products soon, but the big picture of the clothing line I know is going to be something that's going to be a slower burn. And that in itself is a neutral fact. That is very neutral. There's no weight to it. It's just a fact that like, if I want to do it the way that I want to do it, it's going to take a little bit more time. Now, what's been difficult and hard about that has been feeling like it's been, that there's something wrong with how I did it. And I feel like I've had moments where I was feeling like I let people down. And I think that is something I wanted to talk to you guys about today because it's so real. And I want you to know that the biggest lesson that I've learned is that it's okay. It's okay to start fresh. It's okay to start over and to redirect your visions for what you have for the year ahead. In July and June, when I was like first like going full force into this project, I had a very specific picture of what I thought the next 6 months to a year was going to look like. And I'm now at the place where I'm pivoting, I'm changing, I'm growing, and I'm allowing myself to move with the ebbs and flows and to allow like the water of the river of my dreams to carry me forward and surrendering to that bigger picture. I think that I got so stuck on this idea of how I thought it was all going to play out that I really cut myself off of all of the magic and the abundance that's in front of me, that's available to me right now, what I have access to right now. And that story that kept repeating itself was just making me just so frozen in place. And so I just want to be able to lead by example and to show you guys that there is so much space for changing and pivoting and allowing your ideas to evolve. I think there's that balance and that nuance of, being able to roll the punches, but also leave space for your commitments. Even though I'm allowing this vision to have a slower burn, that doesn't mean I'm giving up on it. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to pour myself into this vision. Number one being like the first micro products that I'm going to be able to launch in a smaller scale. It doesn't mean that I'm just running away from it and just pivoting and forgetting about the initial vision in the first place, but I'm also being open to how this is meant to unfold and not trying to constrict it and force it into something that it doesn't need to be. And I think that also just comes down to as well, like the reason we want the quickness and the speed of it in the first place. I think that a lot of the deep work that I had to do through this process has been like, why do I want to do this so quickly? Like, why do I want this to be done so fast? And why does it feel so like heartbreaking to me that like this time is going to take a little bit longer than I was hoping it to? And I realize now it all comes back to just like this validation and this worthiness wound of feeling like I need that final product to be able to prove myself of creating something, And I think that being able to just lighten and soften the journey and to know that the magic is in the process, is in that creation. It is in these first couple of products. It's not in this end goal that I was hoping to hit. The magic is in this conversation. It's in this vulnerability, I think that for so long this past season of my life, I was, and when I say past season, I'd say the last, from summer to now, we're in fall, we're getting into winter. I think that I was really holding on to all these stories about myself where, the initial vision painted this picture of this version of myself that I wanted to be. And that when I wasn't able to hit that initial vision, suddenly it felt like that vision, that perspective of my identity was beginning to fall apart. And I think that the magic of starting over gets to be like, how do I want to show up today? Like, how do I want to show up now moving forward? Like, what is the vision of myself that I'm creating now outside of these external factors of the business that I have or the certain products that I have launched? It's me. It's how I show up today. It's how I drink my tea. It's how I talk to you guys. It's about, maybe I feel like I can be hard on myself for showing up in the season of my life, feeling kind of stuck. And now I get to choose how I'm going to move forward anyways. I'm going to choose how I want to move forward after the fact. and to be able to pour myself into my creations through this lighter, loving, curious, magical lens, not taking it so seriously, not being so hard on myself, and not thinking that I'm somehow like disappointing or letting people down. Like, I think that people, we all think that like these moments in our life are just magnified to the rest of the world, when in reality, like, we're the only ones who are dealing with our own shit the way that we are. People are just waiting to see us win. Like, people are looking at us and are in awe of who we are. And I think that somehow we think that we need to prove ourselves to be worthy of that idea, to feel worthy of our dreams. We think that we need to work hard enough and do enough and output enough into the world to be able to be worthy of the things that we want in life. And so I think that truly the biggest lesson is that you are worthy now. You don't need to hustle and grind or work and output to be worthy of what you want in this life. The only thing getting in your way is the idea that you think that you're not worthy. I think you think that you're not worthy of showing up in the way that you want to show up. I just had a beautiful conversation with Kitty, my next podcast guest. I think her episode's going to be released next week. And I had a question for her, a little sneak peek into next week's episode, but about, this idea of like a saturated market, and like, when we doubt our ability to show up in our podcast that we want to create, or whatever it is we want to create, like, her response was that you deserve to pour yourself in your creativities now. It doesn't matter what market it is, or, these limiting beliefs that you have about what you want to create, but you deserve to show up because you deserve to create. You deserve to pour yourself into your art and to show up, period, And so I think that this podcast is such medicine to me and to all of my beautiful community, because I think that I made a post on my Instagram the other day about how there's a fine line of Kiki's Meadow and my journey through this brand that I've been creating, where at the beginning of the journey, it was all about just me sharing my own story. And then there was a transition, and there was a line that I passed between just sharing my own story to helping others on their own journey. And I think that once I passed that line, I put so much more pressure on myself to show up in the perfect way, always, to be able to, show up and serve my people in the right way. And I think that kind of really put a chokehold on my expression, because I felt like I had to curate my expression to be able to be worthy of, or to be, more as in just to be in service of my people the best way. And so sometimes I would think like, well, if I talk about the things that I struggle with, then people aren't going to think of me, as a good teacher. And I think that's just such a funny thing to laugh at now, because the truth is that, like, I'm meant to teach this because this is the things that I have dealt with in my life. Like, I teach people how to get past their own limits and their own beliefs and these cycles of never creating because of getting in their own way, because of perfectionism, because that is me and that's been me. And I am able to break through that through the lessons in my teachers and the wisdom of the world that I have access to, that I'm obsessed with, that I get to bring into your guys' world. And we get to do it together. We get to go down this path of creation, of entrepreneurship, of creativity together. We don't have to do it all alone. And there's no shame in being honest with, your struggles and the things that you've been dealing with. If anything, I think that is so needed. And it's so productive to be able to share that and to be able to, come out on the other side so much stronger. And to know that your periods of life where you feel more confused and more difficult, like, that is just as divine as the moments of life that you have all the clarity and you have all the motivation and your energy. I think that these moments of stillness and confusion and, shedding can teach us so much. And being able to hear people who have gone to the other side of that, to be able to really, really acknowledge the truth in that, I think is so, so powerful. There's this quote, I'm going to pull up my phone quickly to read. Quote by Henry Ford. Henry Ford once said, "The only real mistake is one from which we learn nothing." And I think that is so powerful, because I think that these moments of life where it does feel more still and more confusing, when we're able to transmute that and to learn the lessons that we're meant to learn, it's what shapes us and grows us into the person that we're meant to become to achieve all of our wildest dreams. Like, if you look out of your little magnifying glass, like, we look at life from this such a macro perspective of our day-to-day life and the shit that we're dealing with, the things that we're going through. Whereas if we're able to just zoom out into the big picture of like everything that we had to go through to achieve what we wanted to achieve, it all makes so much more sense in the end. And having that just deep belief and faith that everything's happening for you and everything that you're going through is allowing you to pave the path of where you want to go. And even the times that don't feel the best still are guiding you to where you are meant to go. Something that I think has helped me a lot is really tapping into your future and your younger self. Whenever you need a moment of guidance or wisdom and love, I think both from your younger self who maybe had more bravery. I know for me, it's like me in my teenage years, like I was so, oh my gosh, like I just didn't give a fuck. Like I was so just like such a go-getter. I still am, of course, but like I think that when we get older, we, get a little bit more cautious, I guess, of like how we want to show up. Whereas like my younger self was just so badass and ballsy, and I would just go after things. I didn't have enough things to be scared of yet in the world. And so being able to tap into that version of myself, like as I go down this journey, and as well, the future version of myself who's already done it. I look at the version of me who started this podcast a year and a half ago. I was so much more scared and nervous and anxious, but I did it. And I had the courage to do so anyways. And I look at myself now, my podcast is easy peasy now. This is just a part of me. Like I tapped into this version of myself a year and a half ago when I first began my podcast. And so I feel like there's such power into being able to tap into these different versions of ourselves, and we have access to them at all times. And last thing I'll end on for this episode today is find the magic again. Find the magic in the morning cup of tea that you drink. I'll take a little sip right now. Find the magic in your art, in your creativity, in the books that you're reading. Get out of your mind, get out of your head, get into your body, feel the music in your ears. Like, look at all the many, many reasons we have to be so grateful for that's in front of us at all times, and focus on that, expand that, and to stop taking life so seriously. Like, have fun with it, play a little bit more, follow your curiosities, take a deep breath and relax and let go and surrender into the unknown. There's so much ahead of us that we have no idea what to expect. Releasing the expectations on how we think it's all going to pan out, and make space for what's truly waiting for us around the corner. So, yeah, love you guys so much. Thank you for being on the Meadow with me today. I am excited for the rest season of life with you guys and this journey. I cannot wait to continue taking you along with me. If you enjoyed this episode, send it to a friend. If you haven't yet, leave a rating for the show, because that means the world to me. And yeah, reach out to me on Instagram. As always, I love chatting with you guys. Please, 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 always do hang out with me there. I love stories are a big thing for me up there. Yeah, sending you guys so much love. I'll talk soon. Bye.